at a certain point, I don't know how far we're going to get today, and we may do considerable, but you may want to stand up and actually come around, and so that you can see what I'm doing and how I'm doing it.
That's one of the cables out from the wall, so they can get behind.
Yeah,
Yes.
So this the blouse goes on first. Usually, also after bathing them, I always I don't know. I guess it's just because she's the fared. I always dress her, make sure that she's dressed up first. And also because you don't know who's on the altar. I mean, it depends on the adhikar of the individual. If there are neophytes on the altar in the temple, there may be some neophytes who are not sufficiently free from the Purusha Abhiman. So you want to keep her from being exposed unnecessarily. And the toe rings also. Another thing about toe rings is generally, as far as I know, the ladies wear the toe rings on these two toes, sometimes three, but mostly these two toes. The one next to the big toe, and then the next one over. Usually, we always in Vrindavan we put only 2 toe rings on each foot. And usually I put the toe rings on before I put the underskirt. Is there an underskirt here? Yeah. Yeah, Rico. Yeah.
You can ask questions if you invite 2 rings in. If you have any questions, go there.
And usually they have, in the market, you can find actual toe rings, and then you just clip the little ring onto it.
Now, when you're dressing, do you beforehand choose or
I don't do that, but that's just because I have enough experience and I know where everything is, so I just go and when that makes things faster. It can be advantageous, but I just go and see the colors in the outfit and just go and pick out the jewelry, according to the color. I bring the trays and this, like we have a ring tray, and we have necklaces hanging and whatnot. So you say that these are kind of gypsy, but
Any questions?
Do you feel it's important to do decorations where it's not seen, like the back of Krishna's hand, for instance?
no,
Or
I don't, at least if I'm in a pinch for time. It's like right here, I would put at least one ring, like a signet ring here, and sometimes another ring over here. Usually on Krishna, I put a larger ring. Anyway, we'll get to that. We'll put large. Huh?
Sometimes the guys, they want the ring to be seen, so they stick it.
Yeah. That's a no-no.
yeah.
My own question, bro. Before we start the dressing, it should be you offer the flower petal with the sandal or for the lotus feet of Radharani. Krishna is a Tulsi.
Yeah, Tulsi, but no, it doesn't have to be Tulsi. I'm not much of a rules and regulation man, to be honest with you, but what I do is before I approach Krishna, I go to it and place flowers at the feet of my guru, and put my head at his feet, and I put and then I go and place my head at the feet of Gora and Nitai, and beg their mercy, and then I because we have Krishna Balaram, then I go to Krishna Balaram, and then I go to Lalita Devi, and because she's my guru, and she's my main guru, after Shri Prabhupada, and then progressing the Devis at least, and then Vishaka Devi, and then after placing my head at their feet, then I place my head at the feet of Radharani, and then I place my head at the feet of Krishna, and then the end. My head is the blow. Yeah. Only flower that I ever offer really is the flowers to the feet of Shri Prabhupada. But you can do it. There's nothing wrong with it. So anyway, so these two toes, right? Okay. And a very important thing is, of course, it will become more relevant for you, and it should go in this direction gradually, by grace of Guru and Krishna. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur has mentioned that even if one is worshipping Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, in Braja Bhumi, but if one is not worshipping while absorbed in internally thinking of one's what is called antraschinta siddhadeha, that means the internally conceived or the conception of one's constitutional swarup, Braja Swarup, then that worship will not lead to the realm of Braja, but will lead to either Vaikuntha or the Vaikuntha Vrindavan, or to even Vaikuntha Vrindavan is a place on Golokdham where Radha and Krishna, in their form as Radha and Krishna, are worshipped majestically. So in the beginning, Prabhupada has instructed that our worship should be reverential worship. Awe and reverence means that because we're following the Pancharatrika Vidhi, that type of reverential worship with all due decorum and whatnot, that should be, let's say, that is accepted by Lakshmi Narayan, who is also included within Radha and Krishna. Just like in the Bhoma Leelas, all the different avatars appeared within Krishna's body. When Krishna would kill the demons, it wouldn't be actually Brajanandan Krishna who was killing the demons, but actually it was the Vasudeva Krishna who was killing the demons. So similarly, Narayan is also within the body of Krishna. So Narayan will be accepted, the Narayan aspect of Godhead will be accepting the service even though the Krishna Swarup is there. But we should not be attached, according to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, we should not become attached to the opulence of Lakshmi Narayan Puja, because otherwise we won't be able to go forward. So internally, there's a, and you may be familiar, there's a process which is called Bhuta Shuddhi, which means that you internally purify your consciousness, conceiving of yourself. In our Arjuna Padati, as far as I know, there's a description about the Bhuta Shuddhi which pertains to the Gaur Leela. But there's not much described about the Bhuta Shuddhi which is pertaining to the worship of Radha and Krishna. but there actually is a Bhuta Shuddhi, and if one is doing Radha and Krishna worship and is let's say aspiring in the course of your advancing in Krishna consciousness, if you feel the inclination to enter into the worship in the mood of the gopis' worship of Radha and Krishna, then naturally there will have to come at least a semblance of the thing. For starters, understanding that you have not this bag of stool, worshiping the deity, but you're worshiping the deity. You think internally how you're worshiping the deity in the mood of a dasi, or as such worshiping the deity. And so then in your you can think of how you're having very sweet and soft, beautiful hands worshiping the deity, and like this, meditating on at least a ballpark idea should be there. And otherwise, if you're especially for those in the male form now, in this external form as a male form, if you're simply worshiping, you're thinking of yourself as being a male, then actually you have no right to worship directly Srimati Radharani. Of course, cowherd boys like Subal, they have very intimate relationship with Radha and Krishna. It's described in Ujjvala Nilamani that Subal Saka, that he can stand in the Nikunja cottage while Radha and Krishna are in intimacy and fan them to remove the sweat from their bodies, etc. During after the time of their Prem Keli, etc. So Subal Saka can intimately serve Radha and Krishna, but he's the only one. It's described that he's the only one who actually advances to the platform of Mahabhav among all the Sakas. But the maidservants and Sakis of Srimati Radharani, they can advance to that platform, and generally the worship of Radha and Krishna will be in that mood. But so the idea is that as you're approaching the worship of the deity, first you're offering your obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, as a sadhaka, member of the Sankirtan party, Sankirtan movement. Then you go to the feet of Mahaprabhu, and internally you can enter into the mood of serving Lord Chaitanya's leelas, and then through Lord Chaitanya's leelas, internally, this is the internal conceptualization. You don't want to speculate about it, but you should gradually come to the position of understanding these things more deeply, so that your worship actually begins to take shape, and you can actually come to the platform of Archan Siddhi by doing the worship. If you're only doing the worship externally and not actually approaching the internal cultivation in the course of your worship, then your Archan Siddhi will progress to a let's say an inferior status. So in order to go to Brajadam, you have to cultivate the superior status gradually as you make progress in Krishna consciousness. So then your worship begins to take shape, in a different way than perhaps the worship of a neophyte. Because we're not to remain as neophytes for our whole life long. We're supposed to make gradual progress, to a higher platform. And that means the deity worship, although externally, in terms of temple worship, in terms of the decorum which has to be, and the etiquette which has to be observed in the face of the public, etc., that these externals will appear to be the same, but internally the thing has to deepen and deepen and deepen in order for you to actually get the full benefit of what our movement is offering in the matter of deity worship. So anyway, we will conceive of ourselves as being one of Radharani's assisting maid servants, and then commence to dress the deity in that. So I don't want to get too esoteric or too deep, but something should be said. Because,
That we said in the other class.
huh?
The philosophy comes in the other class.
Which other class?
No, I saw. Here to course 1 and VT course 2.
Oh.
But here we cover the
We discussed this, the meditations and not the first.
Yeah, okay, all right. But, but these Prabhus may not be attending that class. I don't know, are they? Anyway, just give you a little something.
Level 5, you're teaching. You're teaching level 5. This is level 1 audience.
Yeah, okay, but I'm just saying, I'm giving you a little something to look forward to, that's all. Because after all, we have to know what the goal is. What is the goal of our activity? Why are we worshiping deities? So another point here is that you, especially in personal deity worship, but you can also apply it in personal deity worship, but generally in personal deity worship you have small deities, relatively small. But in the temple worship, usually the deity is up on the altar. So the angle that the devotees will see the deities, you have to keep that in mind when you're addressing the deity. Like if the deity's up here and the devotees are down here, then in order to check to see if you until you're really familiar with what it looks like, as you're doing it, in order to check to see, sometimes it's good to get down and see what the thing is actually looking at. Like if you get down here, then this looks like it's just cutting straight across. And the same thing will happen with like the choker, if you put a choker on the deity, and you don't allow it to be rounded, then if you get down from the perspective of the devotees in the darshan manda, it looks like it's just cutting straight across her neck. So you have to to some extent over accentuate the actual form in order to bring out the son. So then pull it down over. So that when you put on the belt can be a little loose, not so tight, but a little loose so that it hangs down some, so that it looks, like it's rounded nicely from that. And it doesn't have to be like just like this. You could bring it down. Usually this is not oh, it's okay. Sorry. But this part can show if the cloth is looking nice. That's another point is that sometimes, due to staining or something in the cloth, sometimes flowers will stain the cloth. So you have to hide those kind of things as you go along, to make the best use of the value bargain.
In terms of order, do you typically dress Radharani completely and then move to Krishna?
No.
Or do you sometimes do Krishna first and Radharani? Is there any kind of standards on that? With regard to that?
It depends on what else is going on the altar and how much space you actually have. But usually what I do is that instead of, I don't just leave him like this, but I'll put the ankle bells, and the toe rings, and put her underskirt on. First is the blouse, then the ankle bells and toe rings, then the underskirt, then her dress, and then I'll move to Sham and put his kurta on if he's wearing a kurta. In the summer season, there's no need, even in the Western countries, for Shamsun. Prabhupada wanted Gaur Nitai to wear kurta always to present them as gentlemen, you know. But Krishna was undoubtedly the supreme enjoyer, the supreme personality of Godhead. So even in New York City, we could dress Krishna without kurta. So then I put the kurta on or no kurta and the dhoti. And then because in Vrindavan they're dressing Lalita Devi first. Lalita is number 1 Saki and Vrindavan and Vishaka is number 2. So there's not so much room here. So I would do Radharani while he's doing Lalita Devi, and then when he goes to Vishaka, then I would switch. Don't it's a project consideration.
In the Lanu Pilton Fisher Banana very short.
Yeah.
In Volta.
I personally, I'm not so fond of. I mean, sometimes Krishna wearing shorts, it looks very cute. You know, in Radharaman temple, he wears shorts a lot. But especially for big deities, sometimes wearing the shorts, and especially Vrindavan time, is not really appropriate. I prefer personally to see Krishna wearing a dhoti. I don't even prefer to see Krishna wearing the dancing skirty pants. I'm not sure, you know, how far back that idea extends, whether it actually extends back as far as Krishna Lila, or if it's just a Rajasthani idea. I'm not sure. Sometimes you see in Rajasthani paintings, and this may have some Muslim influence even, some people say so. But for sure, the dhoti is right on. You know, and he looks nice in the dhoti also. After all. Yeah. So here's a point here. Is if there's any difficulty in there's no bill gear. So sometimes, you know, due to the misconceptions of whoever's made the dress, things aren't fitting properly. So like just like in this case, and this is very important because pins hurt if you've ever gotten stuck by a pin. So after all, we made the point that Krishna is a person and he does have feelings. His feelings are although he's more tolerant than us, but he's also more conscious than any of us. So you have, if you need to use a pen, especially close to his body, you have to learn how to just carefully snag. You might, you know, I don't want to make everybody get up, but you can get the idea. You just snag the claw and pull it out away from the body. Huh? Yeah. So you can see it theoretically. And also, you should never let heads of pins show, or you should never let the pointed end of the pin come out and be gleaming in the light, you know, from different angles of vision. You see a little pin bleeping.
You won't get a chance to practice it, so like
Yeah. Right.
you go putting things. You're putting the thing on to
Sometimes style.
Yeah, sometimes skull covers it, not a sour.
Here, practice. It's going on real. Nice. But
Yeah.
that's the clean up there.
Mm.
See. It's
Putting on the dhoti sometimes is misunderstood by it could have gone the wrong way or whatever. So
Put back.
You're supposed to put it like this, so Funku's here, and it goes through to his legs. And there. There's different ways you can do that also. Really. It's nice to make a dory look neat. You don't want it to be, a bunchy mess. Which, neat. Was this for troops height? See, this story's a little short, so sometimes the dhoti can be brought up like this, but if you do pin it back here somewhere, you have to pin it such a way, you pin it to the cloth so that it doesn't pull and look like this. So you don't want it to look like a little. But say it on, But most of the time, I don't pin it up like that. Most of the time, I pin it kind of like this. We get a little slight curve to it. You don't want everything to be straight. Some people, well, at least, Cormac Kanye is saying that we don't want to say that this is wrong and this is right. But just logically speaking, if something is flowing, it looks more real than if everything is just stretched out straight like paper gold. So I prefer a more flowing approach.
Stretch down sculpture to control the top.
Yeah, so because it was a very opulent design, and sometimes devotees they want to show what a nice opulent dress they paint the deity. But personally, I feel enough opulence will be seen, and you want to get the flow, what catches your eye, what you actually see when you see the deity. Are we showing the cloth, or are we showing the deity? So when we want to bring out motion, then we have to take the flowing style. If you want to bring out the cloth, then you can make it straighter, but it looks a little stiff, in my opinion. So we have a sash.
All that.
We'll put a sash and a belt.
Show them all.
Yeah, there's different ways of doing it. This is a little bit of a big piece. Come on.
No, I haven't passed.
Yeah.
I was savoring both this. Before you put your chatter on, this is resisting. Then,
Usually when I dress, usually before I hang, see, I just made a mistake because I was on him. But the way I usually do it is that before I'll hang his dhoti, because his dhoti's in front, so then the string is in the way, right? So I would take another string and hang her dress. You don't want to pull the dress out, too tight. Just let it hang so that there's a